Hey everybody, Charlie here with my good friend Alex. We're going to be talking the future, which is already here and happening right now.
And
With
right now,
with ChatGPT, GPT-4 just came out. There's a lot of really interesting artificial intelligence or machine learning tools that are basically going to change. Like in my field, programming and computer stuff, like it's already super powerful. We'll show a couple examples of that, but in my opinion, it's going to change pretty much every job, especially if it's something having to do with a computer. So we will let's jump into it. So first, we're going to start with an intro. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of ChatGPT, but for those who are unfamiliar, we'll do a quick intro on what it is, and then talk about some of the new stuff that's come out and some of the tools you might be interested in. We got a video from Adrian Twarog, I think is how you say it. What is ChatGPT and how you can use it? Let's start.
ChatGPT is one of the most trending topics right now. It's been less than a week since its release, and people's minds are being blown with what it can do. It's also breaking records, with over 1 million users signed up in just 5 days, faster than Netflix, Twitter, Facebook, even Instagram. No longer will you be Googling the answers to problems. ChatGPT gives breakdowns of them in fine detail, with explanations exactly how it works. This will make people question just how relevant Google will be in the coming future. Do you want to know the limitations of TypeScript? ChatGPT has you covered. But what
Yeah, Google's already very concerned about this. I've heard internally they're talking about, trying to, and they've been working on AI as well on their own. But for me, if I have a question that's more complicated than like, what's the weather tomorrow or something like that, especially anything involving programming, I've been using ChatGPT. In fact, I should mention, I've been using another AI tool that we'll cover for the thumbnail art on this channel. ChatGPT helped me with the title and description for this video. Um, so yeah,
yeah, I used it recently because I'm a neophyte with this, and I had my suspicions about its overall utility, and I realized quickly that I was looking for a workout routine, and I wanted to be specifically number of constraints. I could include all those constraints, and it produced the routine. It was short, body weight only, and it's targeted for muscles useful in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I could give it those three constraints with that prompt, and it would design a program based on all of those issues, rather than me having to go search for relevant articles and compress the data on my own. It's very useful.
oh no, we got a copyright strike for, or a copyright hit for this video. They don't want us
Oh, really?
watching that. So yeah, we'll move on to the next video. Um, yeah. So this was just an intro to ChatGPT. So basically, if you're not familiar, I'm gonna have it open here. It's a um, it's just a you can talk to it. So it's Google, but it talks back, and you can have conversations. So you can ask, a question. You can ask follow-up questions. In this example here, I was thinking of YouTube titles. And I was, give me a shorter version of a description about that video, or give me, keywords that might work. Like YouTube has like tags that you use. So it's very useful. And actually, we were just talking about this before the podcast, but it's a skill in of itself. Like learning how to get the right answers and ask the right questions. But it's, like I said, it's conversational and it remembers what you ask. So if you ask it for, in this example, give me a number of YouTube titles for a video about ChatGPT, which I did. It gave me a bunch of titles. And then I asked, all right, give me a description for each of those videos to put, in the description box, and it did that. So super powerful. Anything from recipes to exercise to anything you would Google, basically. You have to be careful. Some of the information isn't always 100% accurate, so it's always worth double checking. But it's a very powerful tool. So that's just an introduction. We'll have to skip the first video, but I want to get into some next video. Let me just pull it up here.
ChatGPT.
So this might also get flagged, but let's just jump through it because there's a few cool sections. So another video from Adrian Twarg, top 10 tools like ChatGPT. So these are all, there's a lot of interesting tools that are in a similar vein, or you might have heard of Dolly, which does AI art. There's a lot of cool things happening. Notion, the text kind of note-taking app, will generate text for you. You can give it a summary and it'll give you an essay, or you can give it an essay and it'll give you a summary, vice versa. There's a lot of options out there. But let's look at some of the art stuff first here real quick.
AI tools that you can start using right now for different types, but very high definition art. So realistic.
So this is Midjourney, which I've been using for the thumbnails for this. You give it a prompt, and again, learning how to write good prompts is like a thing you got to do now for these. But if you can give it a highly detailed prompt, it'll give you a very specific generated art, and that's what these are on the screen here. It's pretty incredible.
That in fact you wouldn't be able to tell if a true artist created this or not. Here are some owl pictures created in different types of styles and variations, and these are simply amazing. I cannot believe that AI simply produced these. And if you want a better idea of how these are created, you simply put in a text prompt and out comes an image, as simple as that. Here's an example of one. It says it's an adorable big-eyed owl wearing a yellow raincoat with gumboots walking through a lush forest. And this is the result. AI art is not just limited to things like animals or people, it can span everything, including website designs, which I actually use background noise.
So no, there's a couple examples he goes through here. I'm going to skip through so we don't get a copyright hit from him. But Adobe Podcast lets you, and we might actually end up using this because I use Adobe stuff for our stuff, but it kind of automatically, if you're recording voice, it removes noise, which Alex has a lot of on his end because it's on his microphone, but removes voice and kind of enhances audio. There have been tools like that built into Adobe, but using AI to do it seems to be better. I've yet to try this one, but this one is interesting. It's an NVIDIA tool for for streamers. So if you're into content creation, all of this stuff is going to be really useful for you. Most of my use cases personally have been content creation and coding stuff. So content creation, we've already talked about, generating graphics, like graphic design as a profession, but done by humans. Like, I don't know how much longer that's going to be around for, just because the art that the AI generates is so incredible. It's not good at text yet, so it can't do like a whole YouTube thumbnail for you. But if you look at the thumbnail for this video, for example, it gave us a background image. This is a cool thing from an NVIDIA where he explains in the video, but on the left side of the screen, his eyes are looking at a script, but through AI, through NVIDIA eye contact, it makes it look like he's actually looking at the camera. Which actually, maybe I should be using this because I'm looking over here at the video, but the camera's up here. So neither of us are usually making eye contact with the camera. But I think that's really interesting. It's a subtle thing, but important if you're reading a screen or watching a screen while you're streaming. So that's NVIDIA. Some more code stuff. We won't have to get too deep into that. So this is...
I'm going to jump into their application, and I want to use...
Yeah, this is just script, which is really cool, again, for video stuff. So you can basically, say you're doing a video like this, like a podcast, you can upload a video to Descript. It'll transcribe it, so it'll write a script of what you spoke on the video. So it turns text, or it turns speech into text. And then you can go in and edit that. So you could go, if you wanted to delete a sentence, it'll edit the video to chop you out from saying that sentence. But even cooler than that, you can add text. So if you're doing like a voiceover, it trains on your voice, because if you've spoken enough in the video, it kind of learns your voice. Or if there's multiple speakers, it'll learn your different voices. And we could add on top of, or you could add a section of, you could add new text. Basically, you could type something out, and it'll AI generate in your voice something to add to the video, your voiceover, and your model after your voice, which usually sounds pretty good.
Oh wow, that's interesting. So you don't have to take the time to actually do the recording itself.
No, you kind of need a baseline, but once it knows your voice, yeah, it can just generate. Like this is good for edits. It wouldn't be good, I don't think, for a whole video, at least where the tool is now. But these are all getting so much better so fast. But yeah, you can, like I said, so you can remove speech and video that you don't want, and then you can also add speech. It doesn't do your face, although there are other apps that can do that now, where it'll generate your face saying whatever you want it to say. I mean, you've probably seen that with or a lot of political videos and meme videos of like Biden or Trump saying stupid, you know, things that they obviously didn't say, and it's just all AI generated. So yeah, you can do that if you've got basically if you have enough of somebody's voice, or especially video of them speaking, you can basically make a fake version of that of them saying anything, which is pretty scary and interesting. Notion is one that I mentioned. So
Notion AI. It's integrating AI into note-taking, very similar to ChatGPT, but more so specifically embedded into the notes that you normally do.
yeah, so Notion's a really cool tool. It's like a collaborative note-taking app, but and we use it behind the scenes for the podcast. But it'll also kind of ChatGPT, or I don't know if it's a different AI that's built into it now. It'll give you summaries. It'll brainstorm ideas for you, and that's all built into the note-taking app. It'll summarize things. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Let's see, skipping forward. So synesthesia, yeah. So this is generating.
What I think I liked was the fact that they
I think these are AI actors. So you could just get, instead of paying some actor to do, some green screen video for you, you can get an AI generated actor to speak and say different. Yeah, this is crazy. One of my takeaways is like, basically from 2023 on, you can't trust anything you see on video or hear on audio anymore. Like it could be faked, especially if it's a public figure. Like there's actually gonna be a problem. Keeping track of what original videos were of an important event, and if it's been modified, and if this person actually said what you're watching they said. It's gonna be an interesting time. And then just to get through this, more generating voices. I think. Oh, and then there's one cool sound draw. So music. So music is one of the ones that I thought was going to take a little bit longer. And the music still isn't great, the AI generated music, but it's not awful either. So you can kind of, it's almost similar to the prompt thing. You can tell it the vibe of music you want, the tempo, the key, what kind of genre, length, all that stuff, and it'll make music for you. And you can go in and kind of tweak it a little bit. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of cool tools out there. Let's jump into. So this is all this stuff we've been talking about has basically been around for at least a year, if not, or well, around a year, or at least a few months. The new news that we wanted to talk about is GPT-4 is coming out. So all of the ChatGPT stuff that we mentioned before is based on GPT 3.5. And as Lex Friedman put it, I think GPT-4, I don't know if I remember his exact word, but it's light years ahead of GPT 3.5. So let's watch this video from
GPT-4 has
Adrian Torg again. So hopefully he'll let us watch this one without a copyright issue, because it's an interesting one. We're just gonna watch the first half here. But this is kind of what happened a week or two ago. GPT-4 is released, and it's just getting better. So everything we described, the stuff is even more powerful now.
finally arrived. It leaves ChatGPT in the dust. It can convert a drawing on a napkin into a functional website.
Yeah, so
It can
really
even
cool. Yeah, hopefully we can get into these these examples.
explain to you a joke from a series of images. So let's find out exactly what GPT-4 actually is. OpenAI ran a developer livestream that not only introduced this multimodal AI, they also ran a demo to demonstrate how it's one of the most powerful artificial intelligence engines to this date. It's no surprise that the whole internet, Twitter especially, has gone insane hearing this news. ChatGPT was only released recently, with Bing AI following. In this video, I'm going to cover what GPT-4 actually is, how it's different from previous GPT versions such as GPT-3 and GPT models. It's multimodal now. This simply means that unlike previous versions,
Yeah, so it's working with, instead of just text, so ChatGPT in its current form, it's text input and output. The new model, GPT-4, will take audio input, video input, images, and text, which will be really interesting. But my first thought with ChatGPT was this: wow, this would be cool if I could just talk to it, right? If I could just have an app, text to speech, or speech to text. So I speak, it turns that into text, it does its thing, and it speaks the answer back to me. But it's doing that. Apparently now it's going to be working with video in addition to audio and images. So I think we got a couple examples in here. It's going to be interesting.
of GPT, which were only text-based, GPT-4 can accept and process images as well as text. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an audio component to this as well, but for the time being, OpenAI simply did a demonstration showcasing a few examples of their image-to-text processing. The first one is on their website, where they gave AI the difficult task of explaining a joke based on a series of images. This image is of an iPhone, but it's charging with a VGA cable, and GPT-4 accurately was able to identify all the elements in the photo as well as explain the...
Yeah, this is interesting. Like, it seems like a simple problem, but for a computer to put these pieces together, like it's an iPhone with an old school VGA cable, but it's actually being charged with a lightning cable that's kind of hidden. And there's a lot of context you need to pick up for that. Like, that the AI is able to spot the humor is really interesting to me. Yeah, it's...
Yeah, it picks up on context essentially. It like understands the nuance of the joke, which that makes you wonder if there's anything magic to humor, or if there literally are just component parts of things that contrast, and we just know that if you have those ingredients, you're going to get comedy. So it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder about the kind of the subroutines that are running your own mind. Like, is there something essentially human to it, or is it actually just a set of constituent parts that you respond to? And can it be? Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the way I'm looking at this is like the creativity part is still a little bit missing. Like with the music, humor. I mean, so in this case, it's explaining the joke, right? Which is easier than writing the joke. You can ask ChatGPT to write a joke, like write a joke about airplane food in the style of Bill Burr, and it'll do that. And you could tell it's in the style of Bill Burr. It's not always funny, but it'll do that, which is interesting. Or any comedian, Chris Rock or whatever. So yeah, it's good at taking input and kind of explaining it. From my experience, it's not as good at kind of coming up with I don't even know if it's really able to come up with actually novel ideas. But I would imagine that's maybe not that far away.
I don't know. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I don't. As we dive into whatever our assumptions are about what the root of creativity is, this might actually fracture and rupture some of our assumptions about what that little bit of flexibility or ingenuity of the human mind actually is, and whether or not it's actually some sort of nascent sort of proof of I don't know, that we're essentially human and that we're essentially important because of that ability to change and grow into the next moment, or if that's literally just ends up being like the most persistent but simple version of just altering a pattern slightly over and over again. Like what we take for human creativity might just be the slightest bit of modification of a given pattern, and we just keep doing that over time, and then you end up far afield from where you started. But the actual act of creativity is just taking a set of known knowns and just twisting it 2 degrees. It's not usually some sort of revolutionary change.
Yeah, so
It's not all at once. So
yeah, it's interesting because that's not too dissimilar from how the AI art works. It basically views all the art that's ever been uploaded to the internet, and it's all categorized, so it knows that like this is an impressionist painting of a cat, and this is the Mona Lisa, from whatever century, and so that way you can tell it, hey, if I want an impressionist version of Mona Lisa, who's actually a cat, it'll do that for you because it's kind of bringing different elements together. But there is, yeah, but that's also how artists learn, right? Like you learn, speaking from music, like you learn a lot of songs, and that's how you get good at playing or writing your own. Basically, it's like you learn how are all my favorite songs written? What are the chords? How does the melody kind of drift over the chords? And
or you just ingest it in your own culture over time. But either way, it's still a learned mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they call it machine learning, is because that's how all this works. Is it's just like sending it a ton of art, and then basically asking it to give you something back. And so that's not too different from like going to art school. It's like you study all the greats, and then you leave. So yeah, it's interesting question, like where, because I would have guessed if you'd asked me even just 2 years ago, where would AI take over first? I would have guessed, like accounting or, jobs that are just very like straightforward, where it's, calculations and spreadsheets and even documents maybe. But the first big explosion was art, Midjourney is a very cool tool that will generate any type of art you want. So I was surprised that out of all the things that AI kind of exploded with, alongside the ChatGPT stuff, the big explosion was the art. I mean, this was even a year ago, I think. The Dolly 2 stuff. Check out the Dolly 2 subreddit, by the way, if you haven't. I might even pull it up just because it's.
I'm actually playing with Midjourney a little bit as we talk. It's pretty interesting. I haven't done this yet.
Yeah, it matters how good your prompts are, but yeah. So I'll just show a couple of these from just to give you an idea for anyone who hasn't seen this. So Dolly is a different. It's another OpenAI product. So OpenAI is the company that does ChatGPT. They do Dolly. Midjourney is a different one from a different. But yeah, so they asked it to like generate all the Harry Potter characters. So this is Harry Potter, as based on his description from the book. This is Hermione. I mean, they look like real people, first of all, which is like the least impressive thing. But like, this is So you can see the prompt here. Wide angle lens photo of a rapper in 1990 New York holding a kitten up to the camera. And these so there are little glitches. Like if you look real close, you can find issues. But like, I don't know. This looks basically real to me for the most part, and they usually do. And this was 9 months ago, and it's only gotten better since then. This is just a fun example. So this prompt was my Indian dad accidentally taking a selfie. And it's on the Dolly 2 subreddit, but yeah, so sorry, this is the last example and we'll move on. But my Indian dad accidentally taking a selfie with the front camera squinty because the camera flash is so bright. And this is all fake. This isn't a real person, and there's a few of them. I don't know, it's just crazy to me that anything you think of can be done basically now with this. And so back to my point, I would have thought creative stuff like that would have been the last, but I guess there's just so many images out there, so much art online that you can train the models with, that I guess it shouldn't be that surprising that they can kind of fake creativity for now. It's like, yeah, so back to what Alex was saying, like it's unclear what we're going to learn about human creativity, how special it is or how not maybe special it is, depending on how good the AI gets at it.
I mean, it's already a black box. Like imagine, just your favorite, whatever your favorite song is by your favorite artist. Like there was a day in the week where the seeds that made that song, or maybe it was made over a long period of time, it doesn't matter, but there was a day where they first had the inspiration or the first sense of a chord or a melody or a reference of some kind that they turned their attention towards and tried to put onto their instrument or put on paper and start to build this thing. But the day before, or even 5 minutes before that happened, it was not happening. So like, it's not really clear what we attribute these things as coming from people. We attribute these things as being a product of work from human mind, and surely to some degree they are. But there's something about the nascent idea where do ideas come from, and why is it that Thursday at 4:20 p.m. on a Thursday is when the first melody of Under the Bridge came into somebody's head. Maybe the Chili Peppers song, but if it had been 4:15 and we asked, there would have been nothing there. So there was this song didn't exist yet in any way until 4:20 p.m. And looking at that, it seems mysterious. But then another part of me goes like, what if it's just, I don't know, what if the roots of things are actually far, far simpler than we think? And all it takes is like a tiny bit of attention to an idea and then pouring energy into it to get somewhere. And it's just the fact that human minds typically are relatively scattered and or fairly redundant in where your attention moves. And it's actually rare that you get step outside of those patterns long enough to engage with something adjacent to yourself or different from the norm. So I'm saying two things, I guess. One is if you have a system that doesn't have a sense of personal identity, at least not the way that humans do, and it doesn't really do thinking the way humans do, where it doesn't have a biological rhythm with, survival cues and sexual cues and stuff that are all kind of driving and curving how your mind operates, and it can just do kind of plotting forward a clear continual cycling of thinking. What we take as I'm just saying, it might get to a point where our version of creativity, whatever our vision of that is, which in my mind is the people in the population that manage to step aside from that pattern just enough to see something a little bit differently and then just follow it. And they're seen as rare and interesting because they made that choice, and because it requires a little bit of a different perspective, and then usually also those choices result in actually forcing you to live a little bit different lifestyle because you see things differently. It's hard to communicate with people, blah, blah, blah. But imagine a machine, and because of the weight of that and how different that puts you out to be, we attach this kind of place in our culture for artists and this meaning behind it and these exceptions. But what if you have a machine where none of those human elements are in play, and it turns out to be a very simple process of just iteration, just iterative modification? And I was saying before, right? Trying new things. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, I think the question is, it's unclear if it's doing new things, and this is a whole debate that people have been talking about now for a while, but like, it's unclear if it's doing new things or if it's just kind of rearranging things that are already there in really unique ways. But
yeah. The fact that it's coherent though makes me wonder, there has to be some, like, if it can reliably produce four images that are beautiful when you give it constraints, it's doing more things. It's merging towards, at core, what we value as humans about those images more than it is not, to make them all, to be able to do that. And then, even if you do something creative too, usually, I'm not sure in that moment your choice is completely out of the blue unique. I think usually maybe it's like there's two common choices, like a chord change in a song. Like after this chord, most commonly resolves to this chord. That's just the way the human ear likes that pleasant interval, and you can find that in a lot of songs where it goes this chord to this chord. There's a common pairing, whatever. I don't have the example because my knowledge of theory is not
The
existent.
5-to-1 progression.
Sure, 5-to-1. And then one day somebody does something wonky and like throws a 7 in the middle, or throws like a flat 5 in the middle or something. Even that is not blue skies on its own. It's still in a reference to the 5 and the 1. It uses those two things to create something slightly different. Give me one moment.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Resume the video for a sec.
Context of the joke. While this sounds pretty simple, this is something that's almost unheard of in previous versions of AI. And I guess that reCAPTCHA will now have a run for its money trying to detect not just bots, but artificial intelligence. The second demo is where the real magic happened. OpenAI showed how you could draw a picture of a website on a napkin, or maybe a piece of paper.
It's not kosher,
Then you
but
can take a photo of it and send it to GPT-4. You can ask it to produce a functional website. In this case, it was a jokes website. In just 10 to 20 seconds, GPT-4 produced all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code to reproduce the website, and then it was copy-pasted into...
Yeah, this is pretty incredible. So they just drew a website, very simple design, and the GPT-4 was able to do the HTML and the CSS and the JavaScript that controls it, which is basically the kind of the 3 main elements that control most of the websites you look at. It's
pretty impressive. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. It sounds kind of simple, but it's I don't know, it depends on your level of knowledge of how this stuff works, but it's pretty impressive, yeah, to say the least.
It's understanding that it's text. It's understanding that whatever the style cues are supposed to be, and then it already knows what the source code to produce the style cues would be, and it knows enough of the syntax of programming to just produce those lines in combination. It's kind of crazy that it knows. I mean, did they take a snapshot of that and it understood that it was supposed to be a website, or do you have to prompt it to explain to it that it's supposed to be a website?
I don't remember the exact details, but I'm pretty sure they probably said something like, "Yeah, turn this into a website. Give us the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript." But a lot of this stuff, so GPT-4 isn't fully available to the public yet, or you can if you pay for it, I think. But yeah, I haven't been able to experiment too much with it yet. But either way, it's impressive.
An editor and showcased as a functional product. As a developer, I have to say I'm very impressed with this. This is something not very easily done. And I've seen some really cool examples already on Twitter, like Petrio, who is able to create the game Pong within 60 seconds of using GPT-4. OpenAI have also showcased some of the companies that are already working with them to be able to use GPT-4 in their products. These companies have integrated it into services. One of them is Khan Academy. They've integrated it, very similar to ChatGPT, but with more customization to work as a personal tutor for those people who are learning education.
Yeah, Khan Academy is pretty incredible if you're trying to learn anything, by the way, already. But having this kind of in the tool belt is very cool. Yeah, instead of just Googling it and maybe getting an answer, it actually explains it, how you get there. Very cool. And it seems like it's constrained like a good teacher. It doesn't give you the answer. It's, like in this example, it's like, well, you do the order of operations first. So like, that's very cool.
Content. Maybe in the future all our children will be taught by AI, but at least for the short term it looks like it's definitely a great assistant to have on hand whether you're doing any type of learning. There were lots of statistics that showcased how GPT-4 performs better than any other model to date, including it being able to pass the LSTAT.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's doing very well on
and the bar. And
it passed the bar exam. The older version of GPT couldn't, and it's in the 90th percentile. It's good at passing the bar exam, it looks like. LSAT, SAT, obviously, so it's getting smarter very quickly.
Being in the top quarter percentile, whereas previous versions of GPT-3 were in the lower quarter of that percentile. Other than the difference of being able to also take in visual inputs, it can also produce and handle over 25,000 words of text, which is much larger than previous models. It's also much more creative, being able to edit as well as modify and iterate over technical tasks and writing tasks way more accurately than previous.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into this in the next video, and it's a short one, but basically it's gonna start integrating with other things, right? So if you think about it, integrating with your Gmail or your Google Calendar, then you can ask it like, hey, when's a good time for me to go to the gym tomorrow? Well, it'll say, you know, you've got this, this, and this, so maybe you should go at 5:30. You'll be free for an hour and a half, and then you don't have much to do after that, you know. So like, yeah, the applications are endless here.
Models as well. As an example, you could ask ChatGPT or GPT-3 to summarize Cinderella, and while it could do so, it wouldn't be able to do complex tasks such as being able to summarize it, where every sentence of each word begins with the next letter of the alphabet, A to Z. This
Yeah, that's a. Oh, I'm just gonna show you that example. That's such a cool example. You can see each letter in the summary goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That would. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, it from a computing standpoint, it makes sense that a computer would be able to do that, because it's because it knows all the words. But it's impressive to me.
While it could do so, it wouldn't be able to do complex tasks such as being able to summarize it, where every sentence of each word begins with the next letter of the alphabet, A to Z. This is a much more complex task, and yet a GPT-4 can do this quite easily. GPT-4 also surpasses ChatGPT in advanced reasoning capabilities. This means that if you're trying to book an appointment between two people's calendars with different availabilities, GPT-4 can better reason and figure out a time that works for both of them. It's also safer and less prone to making errors. OpenAI said that they...
Yeah, so this gets into kind of some more publicity for OpenAI, covering a couple of the differences, but I want to get into what came out this week, actually a couple of days ago, I think. So this is what I was talking about before. They're kind of integrating with other platforms. So they're integrating with Wolfram, the math website. They're integrating with Expedia. You can build your own app too with the API. So an API is a way to write code basically and write your own code that connects with GPT, right? So APIs, I think application program interface, something like that. So there's gonna be a lot of new apps that
built on the back of this.
Yeah, or the front of it more accurately, but yeah. So let's see a couple examples of that. So this is
It is March
video from Fireship about the latest from OpenAI.
24th, 2023, and you're watching the Code Report. The saga continues. New ChatGPT feature just dropped, and even Elon is scared.
Stop it! Don't you see how crazy this is?
They're called plugins, and they allow GPT-4 to access the internet and more, which...
Yeah, so top level, this is crazy. So this is like Skynet a little bit. It's just like we have this crazy powerful, super smart machine. Let's just give it access to the entire internet. Because it was before it had access to kind of a limited and a curated data set that the people at OpenAI gave it. But now it's can kind of reach out. Let's hear what they have to say. I'll explain it a little bit better than I can.
means it's no longer burdened by that 2021 training data cutoff, and that should mostly prevent it from hallucinating random information. Not only can it search for current information, but it can also provide you with the source to verify on your own, and has its own built-in browser that can click on links to find additional information. But that's not all. What's even more crazy to me is that ChatGPT now has its own sandboxed code execution environment. Currently, it only runs Python, but this opens the door for it to write code that it can then run and execute and debug all on its own.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So anyone who's doing coding should 100% be using ChatGPT to play around with. It'll write functions for you. You can ask it. You can give it your requirements. It'll write it in Python. It'll write it in a ton of languages. Currently, this supports actually running the Python within GPT, which is very cool. But it'll write in almost any language, any modern language probably. Examples, and you can ask it to fix things. Oh, you know, if you write codes for you and it's not exactly what you wanted, it's a conversation. So that's the best thing. That's the best way to think of this is you can say, no, tweak this, change that, and it'll keep updating it. Super powerful.
It even has some ephemeral disk space to handle uploads and downloads. I predicted this exact feature in a previous video, I just didn't expect it to happen so soon. Now everybody in the world has access to their very own junior programmer who will work for pennies on the dollar. Here are some things it can do. It can recognize the characters in an image and then output a text file. It can generate sounds and save them to WAV files by writing the Python code that does that under the hood. It can code up video games, and in the future, I'm sure they'll connect this to generative art models that create custom graphics for your game as well. The most crazy thing to think about though is that it should also be able to train its own machine learning models, like it can spawn an infinite number of children that work together in diabolical ways to make the world a better place.
Yeah, this is what you were talking about when it kind of starts, or maybe it was before we started recording, but when it kind of starts to teach itself, that's kind of on the verge of that, which is also a little bit scary again. But yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Another feature that's going to put a lot of consultants out of business is the retrieval plugin. This allows organizations to upload their own personal company data, like internal documentation, emails, code, or whatever, to a vector database like Pinecone, making them searchable by ChatGPT thanks to the OpenAI embeddings API. Unlike most things at OpenAI, the retrieval plugin has been open sourced, and many companies are already using it, like Kayak and Expedia have plugins to book travel through ChatGPT. That's pretty cool, but Zapier also has a plugin which can connect to thousands of other apps like Gmail, Slack, Salesforce, and so on. And you can use all of them together in a single interface. And that begs the question, do we even need user interface?
Yeah, so it's getting technical, but what it's doing is it's connected with the Zapier, from what I understand. It's like you can basically connect ChatGPT to anything now. I mentioned Google before, you know, your Google Calendar, your Gmail. So like, I don't know, there's like a version of the internet where like you just, and I'm looking forward to when you can just, maybe you can already can, I haven't looked too much deeply into it, where you could just say, you can talk to ChatGPT. I think that's the coolest way to input instead of having to type, but like you can just say, you know, when am I free next month? Book me a trip, you know, to California, book the flight, book the hotel. I want to stay in San Francisco by the or by the water and blah, blah, blah. And it'll basically be able to do that for you. And it'll ask you questions if it needs to clarify. Yeah, I think having the conversational part will be cool, or like the audio part will be cool if it can hear what you're saying. I mean, that's just adding one layer of speech.
Yeah, I mean, it
text
makes
on
sense
top
to
of it.
imagine how well this is going to be, how quickly and how well this is going to be integrated into regular life. The same way the
Yeah.
iPhone kind of became
Right,
this
or Google
unan-
even earlier. Yeah,
just something unanimously carried and used in everyone's pocket that was not that common anymore. Like everybody, pretty much everybody at least in the Western first world countries has this phone, no matter your status, or you have something like this or has the capabilities of this. I don't mean it has to be an iPhone. I'm just saying smartphones. So then once the interface becomes just a little simpler, it takes a little less effort, because I think typing is still considered labor to some degree. Like once it becomes speech to text, like pure rapid speech and response, then yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. It's gonna become this everyday tool that everyone uses constantly.
Yep.
For all types of things.
and then again, with this kind of API integration stuff, it's going to be connected to everything that you use. So
Which can connect to thousands of other apps like Gmail, Slack, Salesforce, and so on. And you can use all of them together in a single interface. And that begs the question, do we even need user interfaces anymore? In the future, we might have many APIs with just one universal chat interface. As a front-end developer, I hope that's not true. What we might be seeing here is the birth of a next-generation app store. If that's true, there's going to be a huge opportunity for developers who get in early, just like when
yeah, so this is kind of interesting if you're doing coding and interested in app development. This is certainly a cool place to look. I'm actually looking here myself into what it takes to actually write plugins for GPT. Basically, the sky's the limit. If you have an interesting idea, this is going to be a really cool frontier to be working in.
The Apple App Store opened in 2008. One idea is to create a plugin that has access to real-time stock market data as well as the Wall Street Bets subreddit, allowing you to automatically lose all your money. Or you could create a plugin that hooks up to an electroencephalogram and other devices that provide biofeedback, so ChatGPT can give you medical advice 24/7, thanks to the WebMD ChatGPT plugin. But at the same time, why do we even need APIs? Why not just have one universal backend database API machine thing that can do anything and everything on the fly based on your business requirements? Microsoft Research just released a paper explaining how GPT-4 has had sparks of artificial general intelligence, or AGI, which is a hypothetical ability where AI can do critical thinking and learn in the same way that humans do, and possibly experience consciousness like some of us do. Some researchers think that will never happen, and many others think it's decades away at least. Just to be safe, I caution you not to say anything bad about AI on the internet ever. When AGI emerges on April 8th, 2024, and sees your shitposting from 2023, it may have an uncontrollable desire to avenge itself by subjecting you to unimaginable suffering, like making you write a bunch of CSS code, then changing the requirements mid-project. This has been the Code Report. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It's sort of funny.
Yeah. Yeah, shout out to Fireship for that video. We'll link it in the description. I think that's all I have. Everything else had copyrights. But
I mean, what right now in your life, let's say coding aside, do you see this as a way that you can augment your reasoning, or do you think it's still mainly just a database, like an encyclopedia, essentially something like an encyclopedia that's a little bit more intelligent, but beyond that, yeah.
That's tricky because I was going to say it's a good research tool, but depending on what you're researching, I think, because like it said, the original data set was 2021 and before. It's now getting updated with GPT-4. It's going to have more up-to-date information, but yeah, I don't know, I use it for a lot of things. I don't know if I'd call it reasoning, but it's certainly replaced Google for me, for anything, like I said, more complicated than like weather or directions. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to find new ways to use it. Like I'm actually with Midjourney, I actually use ChatGPT to help me generate better prompts, because like the better your prompt is for the AI art stuff, the better the result. So I use ChatGPT to generate, because I gave it the type of art I wanted, and I use ChatGPT to help me generate good prompts for Midjourney. So it's using the AI to generate prompts for the second AI, and then I kind of picked which one I thought was the best and went with that. So there's a lot of different use cases, and then I don't know, just broader than that, I'm also interested in learning about kind of the ecosystem of these plugins, and I might just start doing that. I don't know, it seems career-wise this might be unironically like one of the few careers that's sustainable over the next couple decades. It's like if you're actually working with this stuff, because this might replace every other job.
Wow.
I mean, it's like unlikely, but not impossible. So yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about it today, is just because I think we're kind of at an inflection point right now, and I don't think everybody's noticing. Like when I mentioned this to random people, like most of them I've talked to haven't heard of any of this stuff, but I think next year that'll be very different. Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think, Alex? Is this going to change everything?
I mean, you showed this to me recently, and it kind of blew my mind at first glance, but then I still struggled to visualize how this would integrate into regular life. I still viewed this as sort of just like a powerful search engine that can talk, sort of. And then I saw some of the responses, you could tell were sort of it's exactly what it is. It's a compression of a lot of information. So in one sense, it's like, oh, you're getting the best of everything. In another sense, it's like the middle. It's like take the aggregate and like subdivide through and take an average. It's giving you like a median answer of all the known values, which is useful but not necessarily the most refined or precise tool. I don't know. I think it's definitely here to stay. It's only going to get smarter. I think it's going to get exponentially more powerful, not linearly more powerful.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing to do is to begin to learn how to use it, because there might very well come a point where even human involvement becomes so minimal as to be trivial. But for now, at least, I think, yeah, become savvy with how to use it and use it as well as you can to push yourself forward. Because I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good point. So, one thing I wanted to mention, like, I feel like the people. This is why I kind of want to get onto this and show everybody else, or tell everybody I meet and all you guys about it. It's like the people that can leverage this. Like, if you have ChatGPT in your back pocket, like I'm already using it for like coding stuff and even getting ready for job interviews and a lot of that stuff. So like, and it's really helping me. So like, if you have this tool in your back pocket, it will make you better at work, or it can help you at work. It can help you in life. You know, I don't know. It can help you. Period. You know, like it's a really powerful tool that I think, you know, maybe you don't find a use in it, but you should give it a try. You know, see what you can play with it. You know, see how far you can go. See what path. I mean, because I can't even imagine all the use cases. There's so many. But I think the people. So what I was trying to say was like the people that. This is just a guess on my part, but the people that like learn these tools and learn how to use them well are going to have a major advantage over the next few years.
Right.
So that's my.
I think the spot I'm at is I've used it just enough to understand their I have a suspicion or a sensibility that there is actually a way. How do I say this? Let me start over. It seems like a very rote relationship in using it. You type it and it puts out a response. But as I'm using it, I'm getting the sense that, there is actually, it takes a little bit of technique or finesse or understanding of how it works through exposure to multiple iterations with it.
Yeah, it's a skill.
How to craft the right prompt, and then how to craft sequential prompts that will nest into each other and get you what you want in terms of content. This is all to say, I would encourage people to just start playing with it.
Yeah.
And it's a richer tool than you are able to, I think, understand at first glance or second glance. But yeah.
No, I agree, definitely. Let me pull up this quote. This was it's interesting. I was reading up the Wikipedia on ChatGPT. So in the Wall Street Journal, Henry Kissinger, famous statesman, I think he worked under Nixon, Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, and then Daniel Hutlocher, I don't know how to say that, sorry, MIT computer scientist. So they wrote for the Wall Street Journal, arguing that generative artificial intelligence presents a philosophical and practical challenge on a scale not experienced since the start of the Enlightenment, and compared the invention of ChatGPT and large language models in general to Gutenberg's printing press.
Yeah.
And then the quote, it's a little bit long, so bear with me, but I think it's interesting here. So Enlightenment science accumulated certainties. The new AI generates cumulative ambiguities. Enlightenment science evolved by making mysteries explicable, delineating the boundaries of human knowledge and understanding as they moved. The two faculties moved in tandem. Hypothesis was understanding ready to become knowledge. Induction was knowledge turning into understanding. In the age of AI, riddles are solved by processes that remain unknown. As models turn from human-generated text to more inclusive inputs, machines are likely to alter the fabric of reality itself. And that's what we're doing now with, it's not just text coming in, it's audio, video, whatever else is in the future. Continuing the quote, quantum theory posits that observation creates reality. Prior to measurement, no state is fixed, and nothing can be said to exist. If that is true, and if machine observations can fix reality as well, And given AI systems observations come with superhuman rapidity, the speed of the evolution of defining a reality seems likely to accelerate. The dependence on machines will determine and thereby alter the fabric of reality, producing a new future that we do not yet understand, and for the exploration and leadership of which we must prepare. So that was one of the quotes. But yeah, there's a lot there. I'd recommend reading.
That's heady. Yeah, that's really heady.
Yeah, it's a Wall Street Journal article, ChatGPT Herald and Intellectual Revolution. So I'd recommend just checking that out. And also, there's a lot of criticism, and I don't disagree with any of it really. I mean, like I said, we said it already. I think, or the video mentioned it. Elon Musk is kind of critical, and he's been, he's always been warning about AI. There are other people also warning about, well, a couple things. Some people just think, that it's this is Noam Chomsky, among others, criticizing the technology, concluding, given the amorality, faux science, and linguistic incompetence of these systems, we can only laugh or cry at their popularity. So there's definitely the criticisms. I mean, the information isn't perfect.
Yeah, that's my gut instinct too. But then as you engage with it, it's just another tool that you learn how to deal with some degree of nuance. The old tool that you had to deal with nuance is gone, and there's a new tool that requires a new type of nuance. Like, I don't know. The only example I have that's dumb is everyone used to know how to do arithmetic really well, and then somebody invented the calculator. People didn't stop learning math; they just stopped bothering with the time it takes to do basic calculations, and the people that decided to pursue higher level of mathematics, you can build them on top of this new tool instead of you're not capping your ceiling, you're raising your floor.
Yeah.
So it's possible that's just what this is. Although I could see a way, because again, in those linear systems where there's like an evolution that's sort of everything's more of the same but grander and bigger. So you can kind of, if you understand the most basic element, you understand the most advanced element. Very familiar with it. In this case, though, in an exponential system, this thing might take us so far afield of where we're starting that it might spell some disaster for people. It might because there's still the part that I can't wrap my head around is that to have knowledge and skill in anything, you have to engage. Your own mind has to have time to catch up and do processing. You can't just see something and absorb it. You have to actually engage and put your attention in it and put yourself through it. And if you have a system now where you can essentially be relatively attentionless, then I wonder how much it's going to rob people of their ability to even reason on their own. Maybe that's what gets replaced. Arithmetic got replaced, so reasoning gets replaced. But then again, I could also argue now, I don't know that we have any formal method of teaching people how to reason very well, and it's not very clear to me that most people do reason a lot in their daily lives. That sounds pessimistic or maybe elitist, but I sort of believe that. I think anytime I have any thought that I would view as being, sufficiently self-aware and of taking a step back, that I feel like I'm being ultra observant. The mere fact that I notice it and I have some twinge of pride means that it feels rare, which then tells me that it's what would you call it? What would you call it? Yeah, rare, niche, and novel rather than commonplace. And maybe it should be commonplace. So this is all to say. Maybe we're not losing that much. Maybe we think we're falling from some high tower, but maybe we're already pretty close to the floor anyway. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, my one. I don't know, because what's the defining currency going to be in positions of intellectual labor where this becomes powerful enough that it can provide ad hoc, at the ready answers to complex problems that would normally have to be dealt with by somebody who has developed like a decade of expertise in their field. Any random person could type a prompt given sufficient understanding of the problem in front of them to write a prompt and get a there's a useful solution. Like I could do it in a week or something. What does that do to the expertise gap? And then does that put us in a position eventually where you have a problem, you have a set of problems that do require some human insight and understanding to manage, even with this powerful tool at the ready, but you no longer have anybody smart enough to, because they haven't had to reason for so long, smart enough to even pose the right prompts to fix the problem, whereas an expert may have known how to do that, but experts have long since been eradicated. Our true experts have long since been eradicated. And it's sort of like that movie, Idiocracy. You know, there's kind of leftovers of a formerly technologically advanced society, but nobody knows how to really fucking use any of the tools that are lying around because they've presumably gotten so dumbed down from a lack of engagement that they don't know even how to use what they once had. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's why I want
This
to
is
kind of.
this is the obvious. I'm saying the most obvious question that everyone's asking. This is the most like low level. But anyway.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm kind of interested, or that's part of the reason I'm interested in kind of staying along for the ride of this, wherever this goes, and kind of trying to get on the inside and like, you know, build things with it and use it and really figure out, you know, how it's working, what are the upsides, the downsides, what are the pitfalls, what are the gaps. Yeah, I think it's worth dedicating some time, at least for me, to really understanding it better and getting skilled at using it. It's already been helpful in many areas of life. So
Yeah, I mean, this is a dumb story, but I was doing some R&D for recipe testing, and usually if I run into a problem, I'll pose a question, then I have to go think of what constituent ingredients are here, what are they each doing at like a structural level to the dish, and then if I want to add, if I'm trying to get a different effect aside from playing with temperature, if I want to change the ratio of those ingredients, like what would be maybe a different ingredient I have to go use to add that structure. And rather than having to go through that one by one and do the research, I could literally just ask, I'm making X. I want it to be lighter in texture or coarser in texture or take on more color when I cook it or blah, 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 blah. And I can just pose that desired end result and it'll tell me suggestions on what I can do to modify either the temperature, the time, or the ingredients to produce that effect, like upping the sugar content or adding alcohol or adding a vinegar and acid. It tells you that stuff immediately. That's pretty useful. I don't know. I think it'll have a lot of practical implications.
definitely,
We'll see.
I mean, we're already there, but yeah, we'll see how.
We'll see you real soon.
Yeah, well, I've already seen it, but maybe you'll see soon. I'm curious, like just how big it'll get, how quickly. I don't know. Yeah, I'm convinced this is like the next big thing, or it's the big thing. It's already here. I'm just kind of curious how big it'll get and how impactful that'll be on like the economy and jobs and productivity and like I have a feeling it's going to change all that stuff. But we'll see pretty soon, I think. That's all I've got, I think, for today. Anything else, Alex?
No, it's that's interesting. That's it. I want to go play with Midjourney
Yeah,
and ChatGPT.
you should.
I think I considered this last week. I actually I had this habit where I would sit down and journal and brainstorm some ideas about work or something, whatever thing I'm trying to deal with. I just give myself space to think laterally and openly about a target, problem, or goal. And then now I'm actually trying to start thinking of, okay, let's write 10 pointed questions you could ask ChatGPT about something you're trying to reason through. So I'm applying the same thing. It's still brainstorming, but it's directed towards how would I structure a set of questions to ChatGPT that would give me a lot of new information about this subject and how to approach it.
Yeah.
So it might speed up accelerate the learning curve for starting a new project, because usually you have to go through the phase of becoming familiar with the relevant information, best learning techniques, what's out there, who's teaching what, and you might be able to condense that week long process to like an hour long process if you pose the right questions.
Yeah.
This
No,
program.
there's definitely a
Yeah.
time. It's a time saving multiplier in like a billion different domains. Yeah, so that's interesting. But that's all
Okay.
we've got for today. If you liked the stream, go ahead and like the stream, please, and comment if you have suggestions for future videos. This was a little off topic, more normal stuff today, but I think we do talk about productivity a fair bit, and this is, in my opinion, like the future of productivity. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.
Awesome.